through the Sassanid area, over into the Byzantine area, and into the Mediterranean. That's where the trade has always been. Until the Sassanids were warring with the Byzantines. These two big civilizations were coming together, were warring back and forth with each other, and that shut down the trade route. So they had to redirect the trade route, which went from the west coast of India right across the Arabian Sea over here to Aden. Took off all their goods there in Aden, and they went up the trade route, which is that green line, right up through Najran, Sana, up to Taif, which is right here. Then they went down off the plateau, down to Mecca, which is here, 1,000 feet, came back up 1,000 feet to get to Yathrib, Khaybar, Tabuk, and on up to Gaza in the north. That's the trade route theory that every Muslim believes is the historical event. Dr. Patricia Cronin looked at that map and found two problems almost immediately. Let's see if any of you can find two problems. My 10-year-old son found two problems. Let's see if you're as clever as my 10-year-old son. What's the problem with that theory? Not the mountains. That is a plateau, by the way. That is the Western Plateau. You're almost there. What's wrong with the Western Plateau? And where's Mecca? Is Mecca on the Western Plateau? No, it's off the Western Plateau a good 1,000 feet. You've got to come down 1,000 feet to a place that has no water. So how could that be an oasis for caravans? That has no grass, no clay, no loam, nothing to accommodate caravans. Then go back up 1,000 feet to get up to Yathrib, all right? So you go from Taif, here, down to Mecca, then back up to Yathrib, okay? The Yathrib is the archaic name for what is today Medina. But what's the biggest problem with that theory? Look at the water. What's that? There you go. Give him a hand. He gets it. If you have all the trade coming on water anyways, it's already on boats, it's on ship, coming across the Arabian Sea, why would you take them off ship and go 1,250 miles by land when you have a waterway going right up here, the Red Sea? Dr. Patricia Corona found that if you take a ton of goods just 50 miles by land, it would cost the same amount as 1,250 miles by sea. It's a no-brainer. Even today, all our goods are sent by sea because it's the easiest way to send huge amounts of goods because it costs very little to push a boat on the ocean, or in that case, even using wind sails. But to go overland, you have to have camels, you have to feed them, you have to water them, you have to have oases, you have to be able to protect them against the dacoits and all the other robbers along the way. You have to pay for every place you stop at. Can you see why it's so expensive? So why would they have gone overland when they had the waterway there? So she decided to go back and check this out. Now remember, she reads and writes 15 languages. So she went back to all the original documents, written in all the Akkadian, Nabatean. She went back to the Assyrian documents. She went back to all the... See, there was no Arabic back then. Arabic is a new language. But it comes out of the Nabatean script. And she went and she found out that there was no trade whatsoever that went up the western coast that went through a place called Mecca. There's no reference anywhere to Mecca. All the trade was maritime, and it was all done by the Ethiopians and the Eritreans. What is today Eritrea? Here, they controlled the trade. They were the boat people. The Arabs did not like the sea. They were camel herders. They were people who loved the desert. That's why their names are on no Arab names are on any of these documents. She said, why hadn't anybody looked at this before? Well, if you don't have Mecca on the trade route, then what do you do with Mecca? So she went and she decided to find out where the first reference. The first reference she came to was the Apocalypse of Pseudo-Methodius Continuata Byzantia Arabica, which was from the early reign of Caliph Hisham in 741. That's the first time Mecca even comes into existence on any documentation. That's over 100 years after Muhammad. You've got a problem. The first time it's put on any map is not till 900 AD. That's almost 250 years later. So, take a look at Mecca today. Now, this is what's interesting. If you look at Mecca today, you can see there's a huge building program going on. All these skyscrapers. There's the fourth largest, tallest building in the world right there. The great big clock tower that they've now built. That clock tower, that clock is 45 feet across. They want to make it center of time. They want to change it from Greenwich Mean Time to Meccan Mean Time, MMT. It's designed after Big Ben in London, much, much bigger. This is the future plans for Mecca. But look what they're doing. In order to build all these buildings, they're destroying Khadija's house. They've made Khadija's house, the wife of Muhammad, into toilets. Cemented it completely over. Muhammad's own house, where he was born, is now a library, completely destroyed. Here is where the Ottomans had their great hill. That has been made into the tower. Almost all of this This is the Grand Bazaar here. It has now been made into where the mosque used to be, it's now being made into a parking lot. Why do you think they're doing this? And why is it no Muslims are complaining? They're destroying the historical record. They don't want anybody to know and to ask the questions we're now asking about Mecca. Now here's the problem. If you don't have Mecca and you don't have the Kaaba, then what are you going to do with the Qibla? The Qibla is the direction of prayer that every Muslims pray, right? When you go to any mosque, you'll see a mihrab, which would be a niche in a wall that is always pointed towards Mecca. It doesn't matter where it is in the world, you will see where Mecca is. And if you go, if you're flying, or as I did on Malaysian Airlines, you can see there's a screen on the plane that shows you where Mecca is moving, and so you can get in the aisle and pray at any time of the day. You can always see where Mecca is moving on as the plane moves. There's the mihrab right there in a mosque. In my hotel room there in Kuala Lumpur, I even had an arrow in my hotel room showing where the Qibla was. So if I was a good Muslim, I would know where Mecca was. You always have to know what Mecca was. And remember, Mecca was canonized in 624. After 2 years after Muhammad moved to Medina, he then canonized it in 624. That's in Surah 2, ayah 145 to 149. It's in the Quran as well. Today, you just have a map on your phone. You can find out where the Qibla is. Surah 2, 143 to 145 says that the direction of the Qibla is changed, but it doesn't say from where. So Dr. Creswell and Dr. Fehervari, back in 1905, were going around to finding the earliest mosques they could find. They found the Wasit Mosque and the Kufa Mosque in what is today Iraq, and they found the Fustat Mosque, which is just outside of Cairo. So they went on either side. They wanted to look down where the earliest floor plans, and they dug down to the original floor plans. At that time in 1905, you could still have access to these mosques. You can't today. And they noticed that the Qibla on both these mosques in Iraq were facing west, whereas the Qibla in Fustat was facing east. So here in Wasit and Kufa, they're facing this direction. In Egypt, they're facing that direction. They should be facing down here, because these are late 7th century mosques. He was the first one. Fehervari and Dr. Creswell were the first ones to note this, but they didn't come to any conclusion. They just said, isn't this interesting? They call it a curiosity. They thought that they were facing Jerusalem. And for many years, most of us thought the same. We all thought they were facing Jerusalem too. I did a debate in 1998 with Abdul Green on this very notion. Back in 1998,